Hi, it's Friday the 14th of March, and I have a very clear message which came through as I was stood underneath the eclipsed moon earlier this morning, which I want to share with you, along with today's astrology. Okay, so what shall we do first? Let's do this message because this was the strangest thing. I mean, I'm an astrologer, right? So I'm used to strange, but this was really one of the strangest things, one of the most revealing things that that I can remember in 30 years of doing this. I was absolutely aghast. Okay, I'll just explain it. So, the peak of the eclipse was in the early hours of this morning here, about 6 o'clock, something like that. But we had cloud, and so I wasn't expecting to actually see the blood red moon. Nevertheless, I went out anyway. And there was the most amazing effect because the blood red colour was evident behind the clouds. Now, the clouds were very dark. We're getting rain clouds coming over, so you get that darkness. And as I stood there underneath it, I got a feeling, and I came back in the house and wrote this down straight away so I could record it. So it was a feeling of foreboding. It was an ominous feeling. It was almost menacing. It was uncomfortable. I felt apprehensive and I felt a powerful, oppressive feeling. Now I'm stood there trying to rationalize with myself, thinking, now listen, it's just an eclipse. But I couldn't help getting this enormous, overpowering feeling. Now, this actually is the feminine. Everybody thinks the feminine is pretty and sweet. Unfortunately, in my world, I know that it's not. So I was sort of reeling with that. And I went to the opposite side of the sky, went to a different place where the sun was just coming up, and a totally different feeling. So as the rays just came over the distant hill, I got this. I got relief, I got joy, I got a lifting of mood, I got freedom, and I got bliss. Very clear message from the masculine. The sun, yang, masculine, and the moon brooding in a feminine or yin zodiac sign in Virgo. And the two things were so clear. Now, this is exactly what the Egyptians used to look for on these eclipsed full moons. And they made a great deal of it. They spent a lot of time recording these things in the artwork in the tombs, especially in Dendera, where there is some really good artwork reflecting this. Dr. Bernadette Brady has done some brilliant work on that, decoding it. It was, I suppose, because I've been following her work and I was sort of expecting it unconsciously, that it came through so clearly. And what they would seek to do is, you can imagine the Nile Delta, they would seek to catch the two, one, it's the rising sun and the setting moon. And anyway, there we go. Now, I want to tell you why I think this was actually real rather than my imagination. We have to understand what it is that causes the eclipse. And then we have to understand what that is doing physically to the solar system. Now, I have spoken about this before. I'm just going to remind you of it. So this is the sun path, or the path of the sun, the apparent path of the sun going around the Earth, and the apparent path of the moon also going around the Earth. If you can imagine a boat going round and round a pond, and it's carving out a groove, isn't it? It's carving out a regular sort of path, and everything is sort of, the bow waves, etc., are all quite neat. And then picture another boat doing the same thing. Okay, now cross those two paths. And where they collide, suddenly there's complete turmoil and chopping, and the waves are crisscrossing each other and it's all churning up. That's what happens at the moon's nodes, as we call them, which is the crossing point of the sun path and the moon path. And that's where eclipses happen. Now, when the sun path and moon path cross like this, when the sun and the moon get into that position, exactly where all this is happening, it rips our space-time. And at that point, the electromagnetic field lines, the gravitational corridors, all this type of thing is causing such a huge ferment that the cosmos or the multiverse or the alternate dimensions, the other planes, whatever you want to call them, peek through, come through, they flood through. And this is what makes the moon's nodes in astrology as karmic and as as difficult to understand as they are. They don't follow the normal astrology rules. In so many ways, they don't follow the normal astrology rules. They're quite difficult to integrate with astrology. Okay, so now you can see that it was at that moment when the sun and the moon were at that path and everything was churning up that a real feeling and message came through. And the message was all about yin and yang. It was all about that enormous battle that is raging over our heads at the moment as the rise of the feminine clashes with the masculine energy, which has been in superiority for thousands of years. And it's this enormous battle that is being reflected in our news. And sometimes it's difficult to see who's playing what, but nevertheless, there's always two, the yin and the yang, the two sides. And it is that battle that was really being reflected. It was a window on it, just to show how very enormous and powerful the whole thing is. And this is why at the moment, as unconscious or conscious parts of the cosmos, as we are, each individual part of us, each individual, each person is part of this invisible, interwoven, interconnected cosmic energy. And so it's a real reminder to hold the truth, hold the integrity, hold the balance, be a caretaker for the current situation where the feminine is struggling to rise, but how powerful it is. It felt enormously powerful. But the feminine is dark and brooding and difficult and a difficult energy for us to embrace, really. Whereas the masculine is so joyful, so blissful, it's understandable why the masculine has held sway for thousands of years. But it's also understandable why the feminine, the serpent, must rise again. And hopefully we can get something of a balance going on. We've got enough diplomatic people working on balances at the moment, haven't we? Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Right, I'm now going to carry on and share the chart and just look at the astrology for today. If you'll just bear with me. Okay, so we're going to look at that one. And we're straight through. That's very rare for me, isn't it? I normally mess it up somehow. Right, okay, so what we've got here now is the moon still in Virgo at 27, nearly 28 degrees of Virgo. It's not until that moon moves out of Virgo, which will be another 4 hours, something like that. So 28 degrees, 1 degree every 2 hours. A few hours, 4 hours, something like that, the moon moves out of Virgo and into Libra. As it does, it crosses the cardinal point, the first degree of Libra. It's not until then that we can completely shed or rid ourselves of the energy of the eclipse that just happened. It's hanging on. Virgo is the earth of Virgo, the moon's absorption of the energy, and what the two of them together have done can't be shaken free of until that moon moves into the masculine sign of Libra. Now, a few of us may have felt some quite unusual things going on. We may have felt headaches, we may have had disturbed sleep, we may have felt ill, nauseous, migraines, this sort of thing. And hopefully, when the moon moves into Libra, things will start to balance out again. We've got a lot of feminine going at the moment because on the other side, we've got the sun, fine, but it's in Pisces. So it is in feminine energy. Now, when the moon does move into Libra, what we've got then is the sun in Pisces, that very soft, yielding energy of Pisces, right? I mean, a really feminine energy in terms of yielding, but absorbing, pulling you in. Don't forget the feminine pulls you in with gravity. Masculine pushes out with radiation. So we'll continue to have that soft yielding energy in Pisces, but the moon at that point will be reflecting Libra, a strong cardinal sign. So we've got that instigating, leading, initiating, fighting to balance, fighting. Libra is a fighting, combative sign. It is not a Barbie doll, pretty pink sign, as some people would have you think it. Right, the sun is moving towards the node. When the sun gets to the node in 3 days, and it crosses the node, it once again likes up that nodal position, that crossing the path to the crossing point of the two paths. And then it moves straight on to Neptune. This will be interesting energy. It will be strange. It will be mysterious. It will be not of our world. It will be, this is all energy which is in the outer reaches and hard to access. We're only just being introduced to these energies because the cosmos can only introduce us to so much at a time. Otherwise, we don't receive it because our receptors aren't built for it. We have to form these receptors. Children have to be born that get the future energies. So we're only just getting some of this, and it's part of the new world. It is part of the future. This is very strongly in the feminine, and so there will be more of this brooding, ominous, menacing energy. But when I say all these things, do remember that this is the feminine which brings about the circle of life, brings about the cycle of the seed being in the ground, growing into a seedling, becoming a crop, withering and dying, seeds going into silos, being planted in the ground again. The same with human beings, babies, and then onto children, and then onto grown-ups, etc. The feminine is the caretaker of death and life. And it is the harbinger of the cycle. And the element of earth, which represents everything in our dimension, is feminine. So everything that we treasure here, everything that we want to protect, the roof over our head, the food, the money, the pension, the car, this is all acquisition and it is all feminine. The feminine isn't all bad. Once we can make friends with it, it will wrap its arms around us. But we do have to understand that energy is not always the Barbie doll again, that people would have us believe. Okay, I'm just going to point out Mars and Vesta again. I've been pointing these out now for about 2 weeks. Vesta very much representing Putin at the moment. Almost stationary, is about to station, unmoving, unyielding, secretly holding sway, determined, masterful, self-centered, self-interested, not moving. Putin is not going to shift. That is obvious from this. Mars also very slow moving at the moment. It's only just turned to go direct, hasn't picked up any particular speed. So we can see the standoff here in the negotiations to do with Ukraine. And they're quite sort of intransigent, aren't they, at the moment? They will shift, obviously, but it's really the ground is it's being held on to. We're in feminine energy again. Feminine is gravity; it holds on. So that's them. Uh, Saturn and the Sun have had to move on from the Grand Trine in water, but they are still valid. And so for me, there is hope, but it's got loads of boundaries, hold-ups. This is all Saturn. And the Sun, so weak in these final degrees of Pisces, so weak. I can bet the Sun is dying to get dying, terrible word, desperate to get to Aries now. It really, really is. It's so tired. It's just literally sort of wading through. Okie dokie. Right, I'm going to stop sharing. I hope that was useful. I just I'm so lucky to be able to deliver this to you. I really feel very honored. It's just thank you, Cosmos. Don't forget I do readings. I would love to have to sit and have a chat with you over a coffee and discuss things and look at your chart and everything. I have 100% approval rating. Everybody feels much happier and more knowledgeable when they've finished having a reading with me, which is very nice. I work hard, so I'm glad it's appreciated. And I'll see you on Monday then. That would be lovely. Okay then. Have a great weekend. Bye.